I'm going to start with you, Fanny. Can you give us a brief synopsis of the show and how you think this ties in with issues relating to the school system?
Okay. Well, let's see. A brief synopsis of the show. It's a parent-teacher conference that takes place over, in our show, 80 minutes, sometimes 81 or 82 minutes. A teacher, a fifth grade teacher, has a student in her class whose name is Gideon. He writes an essay that she finds particularly violent in its images and in the personnel that he's put in the essay. There is sexual violence in the essay. There is he's very graphic in his visual description of it. Violence on the teacher, sexual violence on some other students. She reads this essay. She's particularly disturbed. In the play, she says he's passing it around to the other students. So things roll out. He gets suspended. He gets sent home with a note to his mother saying, please make an appointment for your son. He gives the note to his mother and he kills himself. The mother calls, makes the appointment, and she keeps the appointment. And the teacher doesn't expect that she will keep the appointment. In the interim, school board officials have been contacted, the principal has been contacted, and what they virtually said is you should not talk to this mother until she might have some case, she might have some issues. So the mother shows up on the day he kills himself on a Friday when he's sent home with a note. The mother shows up that Monday afternoon.
So the mother has not been, the mother has not decided exactly what she's going to say or how she's going to handle it, and the teacher hasn't been prepped, so it's I read a review that said it's like a real bottleneck situation.
Well, yeah, because the teacher does not expect the mother to show up, so all she knows is that she shouldn't be talking to the mother. And when the mother shows up, she doesn't exactly know what to do. They've been prepped with the kids. You know, she says, well, they've had counselors talking to the kids. We're sending notes home to the parents. And she's basically been told, the principal's been told not to talk to the mother, but the mother shows up. The principal's not there at school that day, and the mother refuses to leave the classroom. So the teacher has to deal with the mother.
And you play the mother.
I do.
So I asked you before we started, actually, how do you deal with a role like this, where you have so much grief and yet you want to find some kind of resolution? So what have you been sort of tapping into to be able to play the role?
It's interesting because, you know, I'm not a mother, but I have dealt with death and grief in my life. And for me because I was saying to you earlier that it's messy, but it has to be messy to tell the full depth of the story. You can't like play at the emotion, you have to live it, in my opinion. And also the drive to understand the truth of what this child's life was that she couldn't access for whatever reason. That has to be active and true, and it can't just be a presentational thing, you have to live it. So for me, I haven't had a child and I haven't experienced suicide, but I have been heartbroken in my life. Twice. So I applied those feelings that I felt when I've been heartbroken and then tried to multiply that by like 10 or 3 billion to feel what it would feel to like feel that empty. But also I think especially because of the time frame, he killed himself on Friday. It's Monday now. She hasn't slept for 72 hours. So it's basically one really long day for her. And so also really the shock and the growing acceptance of like this actually happened has to be in play as well.
Yes, and we also talked about the fact that she's a single mother.
Yes.
So I think that's a really important theme that we want to address. We recently had a speaker come to campus. His name was Dr. Paul Gorski, and he addressed the kinds of conclusions that teachers sometimes draw about parents who aren't as involved or who are away for a variety of reasons. They might be working and they can't make it to all the appointments and things like that. So to what extent does the fact that she's a single mother trying to figure out how to balance play into the role as well?
Well, of course it has a huge effect on the amount of time that she sees Gideon every day and the amount of time that Gideon is in class. And I think what really needed, if she wasn't going to be in his life, there needed to be much more communication with his teacher, because I think both the mother, Corinne, who I'm playing, and Heather, the teacher, had information about Gideon that the other did not have. And if they both combined their information, they could have made active decisions to help his life. She was grading papers when he killed himself. I mean, that's her life but it's not, it shouldn't be looked down on, that's
Right.
her profession, that's what she has to do to survive and to help him survive. But it does definitely, I think, play a factor into how much she knew of her son.
Yes, amazing. And I think it's really resonant here on the USF campus too, to think about the number of faculty, and we hear a lot of controversy now about adjuncts and how they're being
Right.
compensated as well.
Right.
So Fanny, could you talk a little bit about that? What are some of the issues about work-life balance and how we can have parents be more able to be involved in the lives of their children?
I think, and I guess, I hope I don't sound heartless, but I think that teachers actually spend more time with our children in elementary, middle, and high school than we do. And so, as hard as it is, especially if you are a single parent, I think you have to figure out how to partner with the person who sees your kid more than you do every day. Now, I hope I don't sound heartless, because depending on what you do for a living, if you don't get off until 6 o'clock in the afternoon, then you've provided after school care. And so you don't have a way to physically maybe speak with the teacher. But maybe the responsibility becomes, I think if we ask ourselves the question, how do I as a parent remain involved? Because the sad thing about this play is when the play opens, the first thing the teacher says is, I don't think you were at open house. So the teacher has never laid eyes on the mother. And the first time you see this mother, or the first time the teacher meets this mother, is under these circumstances. And that's hard. We find a little bit farther on in the play that the mother is aware that her son did his homework by computer, but she's not necessarily read any of the writings. And so the teacher talks to her about some of the writings that her son has written about. And so I think we have to at least pose the question to ourselves. This is my life. Maybe I go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe I get off work at 8 o'clock at night. Maybe I don't even live close to where the school is, which are issues that parents have. Maybe I don't drive. Maybe I don't even have a computer. I think we have to partner. Schools have to figure out meet parents where they are and how they can help. And parents have to ask themselves the question, given my life, how can I make sure that my child's teacher has seen my face and knows that I'm interested in my child's school life?
This is just so spot on, because that's exactly the kind of thing we were talking about when Paul Gorski was here, because we had one of our programs at the College of Ed, and he was talking about what would happen if parents and teachers really came together, what a revolution that would be, because their interests are very heavily aligned. And then also just how to really accommodate the world that we're in right now.
Fear of assumptions, I think, also plays in this play. But I think it universally, if a parent can't, for whatever reason, be in contact with the teacher, I think there's this embarrassment with that, and it's almost like there's this fear to make that first step, because I didn't talk to you for half of the year, and now I don't really know my way into being able to discuss things with you, because I don't want you to judge me. And I think my character has a fear of being judged by the teacher. She has a lot of moments where, especially because of the circumstances she's in, I think she's been thinking, what are people going to think about me that my son, who's in 5th grade, killed himself? Because she has lines like, what did you imagine I was like?
Yes.
What, do I surprise you? Am I the deadbeat you thought I was going to be? That's not a line, but that's how I think of it as. So I think there's this fear of showing up and the expectations that each of you have about each other, and almost not wanting to enter that ground because there's
Yes.
already these preconceived notions that teachers are judgmental of parents and parents are judgmental of teachers.
I also know too, as a parent, you know, I figure my child represents me.
Yes,
Absolutely.
You know?
absolutely.
So, you know, and then you show up and your child has shot himself in the head. What kind of representation is that?
Of me, yeah.
And what did I not know?
Mhm.
And so, and the fact that he did it based on something that happened when he left you.
Exactly. And the sort of both people in this play are sort of accessories in some kind of way.
Yeah.
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 And how will that be determined?
But it's been a wonderful opportunity for a student actor to have to take this journey of a character
Yes.
and sustain it and all of the depth that this character and the context of this moment requires. For me, as a teaching artist who is also an activist, I always go in search of plays that will incite us to think, incite us to action, incite us to consider, because I always go in search of things that have some relevancy
Mhm.
in the time that we're in, something that we've not considered, something that we should consider, but what is relevant? I always want to say, what's going on? What time is it in history? What time is it in our life? What time is it where we are in Florida? You know, what time is it in terms of what's going on that we should be accountable for, that we should consider? And I mean, the wonderful thing about what's happening now on our campus in terms of wanting to let our students know that they are citizens of the world,
Yes.
you know? So if that is really true, then there are a whole lot of things in the world we need to consider. Not just Tampa, not just USF, not just Florida, not just the United States. And if human experience is global and universal, then we can particularize it and detail it. But the experience of being human is wonderful and painful and can be awful.
Mhm.
And we can be seen through the eyes of different circumstances.
Yes.
And that's what I think is really cool about what this play offers. You know, I had people ask me, you know, oh, you cast one of the actresses as an African-American woman. Is that how the play? I said, no, it's not written that way. But I did say to them in one rehearsal, gender is always in the room, race is always in the room, age is always in the room. Gender is a social construct. Socioeconomicism is in the room, education. So whatever you get to use, if Selena, who shows up playing the teacher, and she's never seen this teacher, the mother, and she's never seen this teacher before, she walks in the door, and the teacher who sent her son home with the note happens to be African American, just let that resound, because I guarantee you, it resounds.
Absolutely.
So that's what's so cool about, I think that's what I'd like to sort of leave.
For me, when I read the play, I very deeply fell in love with it to the point where I could not let myself because I was so afraid, because I wasn't sure if I was going to get cast and I didn't want to get heartbroken for the third time.
Yes.
But now I can fully love it.
Yeah.
But for me, first of all, it's one of the best contemporary written plays I've read, and I'm a huge critic. So, but for me, the writing is so rich that the most important character is the one we never see, and it's Gideon. And the parts, like I said before, that that both the parent and the teacher have different sides to him, and they come together and form that whole kid. But there's tons of stuff that both of them don't know about him. But I think the creation of that character on stage causes, when I read it, me to examine my life. And if something about somebody else's life on stage causes me to examine and think about my life, that's something I have to either be a part of or go see. And I think that's the most important thing, is because it doesn't matter that he was in 5th grade, it doesn't matter what he wrote, whatever. Just examining him causes us to examine ourselves.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. This was a
Absolutely.
great discussion, and we need to do it every time because
Oh,
you're
cool.
always doing some really important work
Well,
here.
thank you.
And I think it really resonates with what we do on campus.